Good evening, fellow seekers of happiness. We're going to continue the whole self-talk thing. It's a pretty big topic. One question which should be asked is, what's going on? Who is this voice in our head talking to us? And I believe that the latest knowledge is that, or the latest theory, since does anybody really know where these voices come from? That it's your subconscious doing what little children do. I mean, your subconscious is a child development-wise, psychological development, if that's the word. It stops around about the age of about 7, and it's doing what a lot of kids do age 4. If you watch 4 or 5-year-olds playing, what they do is they imitate what they've heard in the home usually, or authority figures saying. So I don't know whether you are familiar with a TV comedy called The Flint Street Nativity, and it follows a nativity play being put on by, I presume they're kindergarten kids. They're first or second years at school, the very first 2 years, and a lot of them repeat what they've heard their parents say, and it's comic, and yet it's at the same time a little bit tragic, because clearly their parents having a pretty dark time coping with being a parent, holding down a job, and the children are repeating what they say. So your subconscious does the same thing. That's what these inner voices are. When you hear an inner voice scolding you and telling you you're stupid, making other critical observations, I'm prepared to guarantee that it's a repetition of something that you heard pretty often as a child, which is kind of sad. I mean, if you're the kind of child who's praised for everything you did, then it's very unlikely that you would even be watching How to Be Happy, because you probably grew up to be a lot more balanced in some ways, and perhaps too much so. Perhaps you grew up to be, well, why am I talking as if this person is watching? Because they're not going to be, are they? But they probably grew up to feel that everything they did was fantastic. But if you're watching this, it's quite likely that, like myself, you had a critical parent or two, possibly other authority figures, uncles, aunts, grandparents, teachers, church figures, people who scolded you. And my early adulthood was a pattern of feeling crushed, feeling like I really shouldn't put my head above the parapet, and then on the other hand rebelling against that is almost schizophrenic in a way. But the point I'm making is that voice that I heard, once I read in a book where it comes from, I thought, oh my, because I could actually, that is so correct. I could actually hear my mother's voice. And I'm not saying anything bad about my mum. I know I'm saying negative things about her, but she was the way she was because of an experience, a medical experience. They used a prototype drug on her in basically her mum and dad. She was faced with meningitis, and she was given 24 hours to live. And the doctor said, look, it's here, it's on the market, but we don't know what the side effects are. And they said, we don't care, give it to her. And it had side effects. And she grew up with social problems. She didn't know how to curb her tongue sometimes, and she used to say the cruelest things to everybody. Absolutely, people she loved and people she hated. It. She was, apparently it was a result of this drug. Apparently she had other siblings who grew up quite normally, didn't say these things ever, but my mum did when she was pushed too far. And with several children, that happened a lot. We were boisterous. But there's a legacy. You see, I mean, I can understand her position, but there was a legacy even after I'd grown out of her sphere of influence. That voice I carried around with me, and it was a controlling voice. It needed to be, because otherwise her life would have been utterly intolerable. So she had to scold, and she just lashed out at us in a way that made sense to her, to try and get us to at least not wreck the house. Yeah, I wasn't the best of children. I wasn't the worst of children, but I wasn't a vandal or anything, but I was a little over boisterous at times. And as you may guess, a little opinionated. So I was probably a bit of a challenge for her. So the thing is, that voice, where does it come from? If you examine the words and listen, if you listen to it next time, to step back and listen to it, you'll probably find it is the voice of one of your authority figures. And once you know what it is, you can revisit those situations, and you can actually kind of play them out again. And if the person's still alive, it doesn't matter. That person may have moved on. You've probably certainly moved on. It's between your subconscious and you. So you don't need to go accusing anybody of anything. You don't need to have any showdowns or any melodrama, because that won't help. That will not help you. What will help you is if you sort it out with yourself and ask the voice to justify itself, and then point out the ways in which it's wrong, and point out the ways in which it is absolutely not helping and is in fact damaging you. And because it's your subconscious and its job is to protect you, first of all, I promise it will be utterly mortified, and then you can suggest ways, things for it to say to support you in similar situations. So next time you make a mistake, instead of hearing, in my case, your mom saying, "You're useless, you're useless, you're useless," get it to say, "Wow, okay, that didn't go as planned, did it? Why don't we laugh about it?" It works. The whole laughter thing, I'll get into that. But yeah, get it to be on your side in future similar situations. We're going to talk, this is a big, big topic, okay? So we haven't finished by a long chalk, but until tomorrow, like, subscribe, and all that other stuff. Bye for now.